with regards to the will that there's an inheritance tax. Can you explain a little bit about that and when that applies?
Each person in the UK has a nil rate band of £325,000. That's your tax-free amount. So probate is the process of proving a will. If you have a will in place, obviously you can go through the probate system.
Someone who's maybe in a couple and assumes that everything will be left to their partner if they die. Do I actually need a will? Welcome to the Life and Loss podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about life, death and everything in between. I'm your host Hannah, and today we're discussing wills and probate. Making a will and understanding probate might seem overwhelming, but planning ahead can save your family stress, upset and confusion. Joining me today is Kerry Hay, a Wills and Probate Solicitor from Coles Miller Solicitors, to answer some common questions. Welcome, Kerry.
Hi.
So first of all, my question to you is, someone like me, I'm young, I'm not thinking about planning ahead at all, or someone who's maybe in a couple and assumes that everything will be left to their partner if they die. Do I actually need a will?
Yes. It makes life a lot easier for those that are left behind. You never know when your time's up. So we see people from all walks of life and all, lots of assets, no assets, even just, no cash in the bank, but have a child. It's just really important to have a will so that you know exactly what happens after you've gone, including, what happens to your children.
Yeah, and I think the assumption can be that, I don't have anything to leave. Do I actually need one? So that's a really good point. So regardless of what you've got, it's important for everyone.
Yep.
So I decided then I'm going to make a will. Can I do that myself? Can I write a bit of paper, or do I need a solicitor?
A will has to have certain pieces to it to be constituted a will. It needs to have an appointment of an executors. It needs to be signed in a certain way with a specific attestation clause to say exactly that it is a will, and it has to be witnessed by two people. You don't have to do it professionally, but there's obviously always going to be times when people have done them themselves and there are problems, and it just causes more aggravation and heartache for those that are left behind, especially if it's not done properly and it ends up not being valid for some sort of reason that could have just simply been done by a solicitor or someone professional that knows exactly what needs to be in there to make it valid.
So once you've written your will, is it just a document that you keep, and or does it need updating?
I suggest that people look at things every 5 years. Lots can change in 5 years. You've only got to look around, what happened 5 years ago, what world we were in. It is best to just keep everything updated and sort of, if a major event happens in your life, then keep updating things. And it's not always the full price if you wanted to go and see a solicitor to do it again. A small amendment to something can just be a small additional charge just to sort of update bits and pieces.
And what sort of things do people write in their will? What can you include?
You can include anything. I'm a great believer in keeping things as straightforward as possible, only because life is complicated enough. There's no point in keeping things really difficult, and sometimes you do need difficult things. Sometimes trusts and things like that are useful for saving inheritance tax, or if you've got disabled children or family members that you need to protect from certain situations or people. Sometimes themselves. It is useful sometimes to have more complicated bits and pieces in there, but keeping things straightforward and simple in a lot of circumstances is perfectly acceptable and works well for them.
So what role does an executor play? What is an executor, and who should someone choose to fulfil this role?
So the executor of your will is the person that is actually going to deal with the administration of the estate after you've gone. They're the person that's going to contact all of the banks, building societies, make sure that all the accounts are closed, sell your property if you need to, make sure that everything is carried out in the way that you have stipulated in your will, basically. So keeping things, making sure that it is all done properly. The choice of executor is quite important. It's quite a big job. It's not something that you should take on lightly and just say, they can do it. It's usually husband and wife. The spouse would do it because they know the assets of the person that's died. But sometimes equally it's easier for a solicitor or somebody professional to take over that job, just because they know what they're doing. They're detached from it as well, so that person knows professionally what they have to do to make sure that the will is in place and carried out correctly, but also they would not have any sort of, if there's any dynamics in the family that need sort of carefully looking after, then obviously we're independent from it, so you can have a professional to do it for you, or you can do it yourselves as the administrator again as well.
And do you have to let that person know that you've chosen them as an executor?
It's usually good practice too, but you don't have to. Sometimes it's a shock to the person that they've done it. But then if you are appointed as an executor and you really don't want to, or don't feel that you have the capacity to do it, you can appoint a solicitor to do the footwork for you on your behalf.
You mentioned earlier with regards to the will that there's an inheritance tax. Can you explain a little bit about that and when that applies?
So each person in the UK has a nil rate band of £325,000. That's your tax-free amount. When you leave anything to your legal spouse or civil partner, then that person will inherit anything for free of tax. There's no tax between spouses, but unmarried partners, if you've just been, there's no such thing as common law husband or wife. If you've lived with them for 20 years but not actually married them for tax purposes, it doesn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
So you've got 325,000 that you can pass on without paying tax. There's also a residence nil rate band, which is an additional £175,000, but there are certain things that have to be, you have to have a property and you have to leave that property to direct descendants. So that's children, grandchildren, etc., down the bloodline. Nieces and nephews don't count. So if you don't have any children of your own, you don't get that that extra allowance. So basically you have your standard nil rate band. Anything you leave to your spouse on the death of the second of them, you can, if the first spouse left everything to the second one, then you can double it up and pass that on. So if you are married and have children and you're leaving everything to your children, have a property, then potentially you've got £1 million worth of nil rate band on second death. But it does get a bit complicated, but you can, we can always advise and help.
Yeah. I hope that you're finding this episode useful. Perhaps you have a question that you'd like to ask. You can do this by commenting below. Your input shapes the conversations we have and the topics that we explore, so don't hesitate to reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear more of. Okay, and what sort of rate is the tax that you pay on any amount over your threshold?
So anything over the threshold is 40%. So
okay,
quite a lot. If you do leave 10% of your estate to a registered UK charity, then your tax rate is reduced from 40% to 36%. So it is obviously worth keeping charities in mind if you're minded to do that in your wills.
Okay. Are there any other exemptions or reliefs that people can get to avoid tax?
There are lots and lots of bits and pieces. Obviously, there's lots in the news about farmers and agricultural property relief and business property reliefs that are available. They are quite complicated, so I would, if you think that you are could get some of those reliefs, then obviously you can get professional advice on that. But there are gifting allowances that you can gift certain amounts to certain beneficiaries and certain amounts during the year, each tax year, that you can take advantage of as well.
And if someone's worried about maybe their family dynamics and they're worried about their will being contested or their wishes not being followed through, how can that be protected against?
I always suggest if there's anything that's slightly odd or different in your will, that you write a letter to go with your will to explain the reasons that you have done that. Not only is it sort of almost like a letter beyond the grave, it sort of helps if it does end up in court, the judge can look at that and see the rationale behind why you've made that decision. It's not always, but getting good advice and making sure that you are advised on what you can and can't do. There are certain things that you have to make provision for in your will, but we're not forced to do certain things like in certain French law, you have to leave a certain amount to certain people.
Okay.
We don't have that in the UK, so.
And now on to probate. Can you explain what probate is and how that works?
Yep. So probate is the process of proving a will. If you have a will in place, obviously you can go through the probate system. that is it's basically your key to unlocking the assets of the deceased person. So it proves that you are the person that is entitled to administer the estate as the executor, and it allows the banks, institutions, and even the land registry to deal with you as the person that's dealing with the estate, and it proves that it goes through a court system to say that is the last will of the person, and that you're swearing an oath to say that you believe that is their last wishes, and that you will carry it out to what it says in the will.
So do all wills have to go through probate?
No.
Okay.
If you're under the thresholds, or for example, if you're just leaving everything to your spouse, in some circumstances, if you own your property jointly, it will automatically pass over to the surviving spouse by producing a death certificate to the asset holder. So banks have got certain thresholds that they will allow assets to pass without probate. But it's depending on the institution that you're dealing with whether you can do that or not.
Okay. And how long does that process typically take? I know how long's a piece of string?
It's getting better.
Yeah.
It has been a long process. Officially, it's about 3 months. 16 weeks is normal. We can send the documents off. We're not allowed to chase the probate registry for 16 weeks. But once you've sent the application off, they're often coming back quicker. Some take longer. Depends on the institution. If there's tax to pay, obviously you've got to deal with HMRC as well as the probate registry. So that does make things a little bit longer, and obviously the administration of gathering the information that you need for probate often takes longer than the actual getting it through the court system.
Yeah. And who would be responsible then for sorting out probate? Does that fall to the executor, or is that solicitors?
No, it's the executor. So the executor's job is to make that application. They are basically gathering all the information of the estate and making sure that there's no tax to pay, and then submitting that application to the probate registry.
Okay, well, thank you very much. One final question for you. If anyone's got any additional questions or wants some professional advice, where can they contact you?
I work for Coles Miller Solicitors. I'm based in our Parkstone Road office. You can always contact me there. It's obviously got a big team across the other offices as well, and they'd all be willing to help out.
Thank you so much, Kerry. And thank you for listening to the Life and Loss podcast. If you'd like more information on our charity, you can visit our website, which is forestholmehospice.org.uk. Thank you. Please remember to like, comment and share this episode to help us reach more people. At Forest Holme Hospice Charity, we offer this podcast and many other resources to support people through life's most difficult times. If our work has made a difference to you, please consider making a donation by visiting the link in the description. Thank you.